Fox came at my throat for standing up against censorship.
In my opinion, you failed as a reporter.
From the inside, yes, there's a narrative. Yes, it is unspoken, but if you accidentally step outside the narrative, if you don't sense what that narrative is and go with it, there will be grave consequences for you.
It's not just about the viewers, it's about what our CEO reads. It's about what our GM reads.
My question is very simple. Why are you doing this?
It affects the viewers, that's why I'm doing this. The viewers are being deceived by a carefully crafted narrative in some stories.
I have passed on Bitcoin stories. African American audience of 5, it's probably not going to play. That's a choice I'm making, an editorial choice.
That seems sort of a racially charged statement to make.
I want out of this narrative news telling. I want out of this corruption.
Are you afraid of doing this?
I haven't had a lot of fear about it. I'm so horrified at what the news business has stooped to.
What you just heard was our newest insider, Fox 26 reporter Ivory Hecker, blowing the whistle on her own network's bias. Hecker felt compelled to come forward and shine a light on what she says is Fox 26 being, quote, deceptive to viewers.
Fox came at my throat for standing up against censorship. Fox Corp is prioritizing corporate interests above the viewer's interests and therefore operating in a deceptive way.
I have passed on Bitcoin stories. African American audience of 5, it's probably not going to play. That's a choice I'm making, an editorial choice.
You need to cease and desist posting about hydroxychloroquine.
Not just about the viewers, it's about what our CEO reads.
You need to stand for something or fall for anything.
Ivory, what do you do at Fox 26 Houston?
I'm a reporter, dayside reporter, primarily on the 5 o'clock news, also 6 o'clock news.
And why have you chosen to come forward?
What's happening within Fox Corp is an operation of prioritizing corporate interests above the viewer's interests and therefore operating in a deceptive way. Viewers are being deceived about some of the things that are going on. From my experience, my newsroom kind of groups everyone into racial groups. You know, a lot of our meetings are about, well, how does this play to black people?
Hecker says Fox 26's suppression of news stories many times was based on their viewer demographics.
I have passed on Bitcoin stories by almost every single reporter for our 5 o'clock audience because that's not our 5 o'clock audience. So there are lots of reasons. If I know our numbers are tanking from 5 to 6, and in one particular segment, you know, an older woman, whatever, I may say, yeah, the Bitcoin for our poor African American audience of 5, it's probably not going to play. That's a choice I'm making, an editorial choice.
What does she mean by that?
Research is done to study what sort of demographic groups watch each newscast, and it was found that, according to her, that some of our biggest audience at 5 is poor black people, and she has decided that poor black people don't care about Bitcoin.
That seems sort of a racially charged statement to make on her behalf.
She chose to kind of divert to the story of Bitcoin herself.
Hecker goes on to explain how she believes Fox 26's biases go beyond just race. It even seeps into their coverage of medicine and health in general.
We have some of those examples, including a video clip of Dr. Stella Emanuel talking about hydroxychloroquine in July of 2020.
America, you don't need to be afraid. COVID has a cure. You don't need to be afraid. COVID has prevention. If they put everybody on hydroxychloroquine right now, for those with early disease, and those that want to get prevention, I'm telling you, we'll stop COVID in its tracks in 30 days.
That story went viral July 27th. The next morning at Fox 26, someone tipped me off, this doctor's from Houston. This is our local story. And we also, everyone noticed how it was getting censored across social media platforms like we'd never seen before. We were all stunned by that. My boss Susan talked about how it did not make sense that they were censoring this. Dart brought up that...
Who's Dart?
Oh, Dart is Susan's boss, our station president. And Dart on that call, he said, look, It's obvious why this is getting censored. President Trump said that hydroxychloroquine works. He retweeted her. And whatever he does, everyone wants to do the opposite.
Who said that?
That's what Dart said. So the story aired. We talked about a recent NIH study where hydroxychloroquine was found to neither be harmful or helpful. And I added that to the story, and Susan the next day said it was a very well-rounded, great story. But after I was done putting that story together, I made a separate social media post about censorship itself. And I said, look, we just witnessed unprecedented censorship across the social media monopoly, her being censored. That's an alarming precedent that was just set.
So this was like a turning point moment for you.
That was a turning point for me.
This,
yeah,
Dr. Stella. Yeah.
What became a turning point was how Fox reacted. Fox came at my throat for standing up against censorship.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think they did that? Why do you think they came at you so hard?
Here's the thing, from the inside, yes, there's a narrative. Yes, it is unspoken, but if you accidentally step outside the narrative, if you don't sense what that narrative is and go with it, there will be grave consequences for you. And this story with Dr. Verone is what proves that.
That's a great question, and the answer is yes. We have used it. I mean, we know that it's a drug that has been politicized up to the wazoo. We've used it. We use it with good success.
I asked that question because I was getting those tips from the viewers, and that was a story, by the way, that Susan and Lee sent me there to cover the COVID treatments at that hospital. I just wasn't supposed to ask that question.
To cease and desist posting about hydroxychloroquine. In my opinion, you failed as a reporter to not know more if you were going to post about hydroxychloroquine, that you didn't look it up and look at the latest posts, the latest research about it. Read the articles, read the study. There was a major study in the New England Journal of Medicine on July 23rd before that doctor, went viral. I mean, you didn't refer to any of that.
That study makes him more newsworthy. I was aware of that study, which is why I posted him.
What study?
Because
study?
I referenced it in my story about Dr. Emanuel. She's shutting down a news story that's actually happening, and that's just one of many news stories. Many stories have been shut down over the past almost a year, and I have never to this day advocated for that drug. But Fox said, you've got to stop being a bias. This is the opposite of catering to the audience. The audience was craving answers, and then they're seeing that the news is not covering it at all. Does that build trust in the news? No, that alienates the viewers. They are left to just assume the news must be in on some sort of conspiracy because they're not answering our questions on what's really going on.
When Hecker felt she was being targeted for simply trying to report the news, this motivated her to secretly record her supervisors, Vice President and News Director Susan Schiller and Assistant News Director Lee Meyer.
Everything's going to be under the microscope. You're not posting anything without Susan or I signing off on it.
Industry executives who are the people who hire us and keep us employed. That's the part that needs to make a difference to you. It's not just about the viewers, it's about what our CEO reads. It's about what our GM reads.
It's not just about the viewers, it's about what our CEO reads, it's about what our GM is general manager. What does that mean to you?
That means that corporate values are above the viewer's interests. So in journalism school, we are taught your first loyalty is to the citizen. That right there is saying we don't abide by journalism, we abide by corporate values.
It appears Hecker wasn't alone, and when our undercover journalists caught up with Hecker's Houston Fox 26 crew, they weren't shy about the bias they also felt existed at the network.
You're at Fox 26? Yeah. How come you guys are like the all vaccine all the time channel?
We hire producers, which are the ones that write the show, that are right out of college, about 25 years old. They don't pay them squat. They just regurgitate what they're fed, And so that's how it ends up being that. It's low-hanging fruit.
It's not like this top-down.
No. It's low-hanging fruit. They're doing vaccines across town. Well, let's go get video of that. And at first, it's like, yeah, it's a big deal. When the vaccine first comes out, here 3 months later, it's like, okay, we know vaccines, they're available.
Right, and they're just pushing it so hard, and you don't hear anything about side effects.
No.
The vaccine seems to be working great for most people, okay? But the fact that they are choosing to avoid any negative press about it, they're not going and looking at viewers' legitimate concerns and really looking to get answers. If you want to get vaccinated, that's great. If you don't want to get vaccinated, that's your personal choice. But to use the venue of news to try to convince you to do something with your life, that was the journalism school's definition of propaganda.
But every commercial now is about COVID. Every other one. Every other. So how does that work? Who buys that space?
We're in the time business.
CDC?
Yeah. And I think about everybody, but we're in the time business. And this is with any station. I'm not just going to say Fox 26.
Yeah, no, everybody.
With ABC, KPRC.
I just watch TV. I just see it all day, every day.
The whole time it's like, let's be safe.
But how much money are they spending to do that, though? It's a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah, they're spending money. They're spending money because they can.
CDC?
They can. They in the pocket. They're there.
Do they pay more, though, to get all that time?
Yeah.
They do? So they would pay more to Mercedes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the thing about it, you would never imagine the clients that fight over positions to get into something.
But they take all the positions.
They're like, all right, I'll pay y'all this. This is almost like a gamble.
A bidding war. It becomes a bidding war.
Yeah, it's a bidding war. So if you
and
know
who wins the bidding war?
The highest motherfucking payer.
And who's the highest motherfucking payer?
Whoever wanna take it.
Vaccines are a potential money maker for Fox. I mean, that's some advertising. The vaccines, they need to be advertised somewhere. They can be advertised on Fox. Fox gets paid for that. So you've got to, as a viewer, you've got to look at who is advertising on this TV station, and you've got to realize that surely this TV station doesn't want to hurt its advertisers.
When Hecker's Fox 26 colleagues were asked if Fox 26 would ever adjust news coverage based on its advertisers, even they admit, quote, a lot of stuff can happen, unquote.
So could the ad council call you and be like, hey, I want to run all these spots, but I want to make sure your journalists aren't running any anti-vax stories.
If that happens, it's above our knowledge.
You won't know about it? What about you?
That's above me.
Would you hear? Do you think you'd hear about it?
Oh, that happened? Oh, I'm so sad to hear that. There's a hierarchy in a tree.
But does stuff like that ever happen?
It can. A lot of stuff can happen.
I looked up the ad council, and some of their biggest donors are the vaccine companies. So another one of their biggest donors is Fox Corp. So ad council would be paying Fox after Fox gave a tax-deductible donation to ad council. What's particularly concerning about the ad council posts is they don't come off as ads. It's not blatant that it's an ad, and it's actually paid advertising. So it's a little deceptive.
It's not clear that it's an ad.
It's a little deceptive as far as whether it is an ad. The news does need advertisers to exist, but you always hope that if the news had to cover a story about its advertiser, that it would do it unbiasedly. But there is definitely a conflict of interest.
You mentioned about advertisers. Does the news industry need advertisers to exist?
They do. That's their primary source of funding.
Is that compatible with telling the news?
There's always that concern that the corporation might cater too much to advertising or self-censor to make sure they don't lose any advertisers.
A reasonable viewer might conclude that a local Fox reporter like Ivory might be doing this just for fame and notoriety. When asked, this is what she had to say.
And a lot of people are going to be watching this, and speculating, saying things. You'll even have some critics. My question is very simple. Why are you doing this?
It affects the viewers. That's why I'm doing this. The viewers are being deceived by a carefully crafted narrative in some stories, okay? In some areas, they do fantastic journalism. For some reason, some of these stories have an incredible slant, and if you accidentally step outside it, they try to internally destroy you. As I've witnessed firsthand, that affects the viewers. That does not just affect me.
Are you afraid of doing this?
I haven't had a lot of fear about it. I'm so horrified at what the news business has stooped to. At this point, I want out of this narrative news telling. I want out of this corruption.
Corruption, that's a strong word.
I want out of the corruption. I want to tell true stories without fear of whether it fits the corporate narrative.
The corporate news paradigm is incompatible with journalism.
Absolutely. It's very sad. It's very sad.
And you're not the only person that feels this way. We have spoken to other people who may or may not do what you're doing, who work for other stations and news operations and news organizations. What is your message to those people?
You need to stand for something or fall for anything. And journalism is so important. If you look at history, it is so important to go after the stories that your viewers are craving answers to keep that loyalty to the viewers and to the truth. And if you allow yourself to be guided through a corporate narrative, to be used as a tool of corporate narrative, corporate news propaganda, whatever you want to call it, then you may very well be contributing to the problems that begin to develop in a society that develops a censored press.
Ivory Hecker is ready to pursue a career in independent journalism where she can report the news without fear or favor. If you work in media and see corruption, email us at veritastips@protonmail.com.